Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm conscious of the time. So is everyone okay if we get started? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today and this morning. I'm so excited to be with you today as we launch the first of the series of our ALIA Multicultural webinars. Joey and I have been working hard behind the scenes alongside the rest of the committee to bring together thought-provoking, interesting and exciting themes and topics for this series. If there is a topic that you are just burning to see us address, let us know through the ALIA Multicultural socials or hashtag ALIA Multicultural, and we'll keep track of that. The webinar takes place on the lands and the waters of the Barramadigal people of the Darug Nation and the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Burrawong people. And we pay our respects to their ancestors and elders, past, present and future. And we extend that respect to all First Nations people joining this webinar today. There's no better time than now to kick off this series, Stereotypes and Unconscious Bias. As we leave Refugee Week and enter NAIDOC Week, we celebrate and acknowledge our ancestry and our elders, the point of our ability to be who we are today. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'll introduce my co-host this morning, Joey. Joey has been working towards breaking stereotypes since joining Holmes Glen Institute as an information services librarian in 2011. Joey introduced e-resource, online course reading storage to the liaison area with a very successful, strong uptake by the bachelor's degree. And a few years later, Joey became a website and systems librarian, managing the website library management system, the RFID system, and supporting the discovery layer. Joey's major achievement has been launching the first institutional repository in the Victorian TAFE sector in 2016. And as your co-host today, a little bit about me. I am a team leader at Wentworth Point Community Centre Library, which is part of the wonderful Parramatta Libraries. And I'm passionate about connecting communities, and libraries are just fabulous places to do this. I'm also part of the ALIA Multicultural Committee, and Joey and I are so excited to be sharing a little bit about stereotypes and unconscious bias today. Take it away, Joey.
Thank you, Hiba. So let's get started. So our objective today is pretty simple. We are not trying to go through everything about stereotypes because it's a very big topic. So we are trying to do a very basic 101 session today to have a better understanding about stereotypes and then the unconscious bias, different type of stereotypes, promote discussion about how to break the stereotype, and of course be self-aware that there is unconscious bias and how it will impact our workplace professional life. So today, the agenda for today is we have done the introduction of the webinar. Next, we'll have some very interesting icebreaking game, and then we have the discuss about the stereotypes, positive stereotype, unconscious bias, and then how it may affect our professional life. And then it's the time for you to share your story with us, and let's have a discussion on how to break the stereotype. First, it's the game time. For those who have the mobile device with you, please scan the QR code on the screen, and then you'll be going into the Mentimeter screen to answer the question later. For those who doesn't have mobile device with you, Jackie has put a link in the chat already, so you can just click and then go to the site to answer the question. Once you're on the page, then you will see this question. So you have three options, and who do you think can speak fluent Mandarin? And then Joey is actually me, and then Ku and Mondo. So let's put in your option, your answer now, and then Jackie will take over the screen and then show you the result. So there's a very interesting story about why I put the baby kangaroo as my profile picture. Joey being Joey. For some reason, a lot of people think that I'm a man. Yeah, it's a bit weird. Maybe too many people watch Friends for long, I don't know. A lot of people think that I'm a man because of the name, because watching too much Friends, and because of my work title, because the website website and system librarian. Because of the stereotype of there's a lot of women in the STEAM sector, a lot of people by default think that I'm a man. So when they email me, they will just address me as dear Mr. Joey, and then every time I roll my eyes and it annoyed me to that much. I reckon it is a very funny talking point, so that I decided to not to put my face in anywhere and instead use this baby kangaroo photo. And then I like to see all those surprising faces when they realize I'm not a man. That is my aim of my career. I will try to use this photo as long as someone in this world still think that I'm a woman, I'm a man, and I will put my face back on until the day that everyone realizes this Joey is not a man. Okay, so the result has come in. And then 33 of you think that I can speak fluent Mandarin, 28 think that is cool, and then 24, oh, wow, okay, now 34, 35, okay, it's keep coming. Do I need to speak like all those people do the house auction, and it's like, this is the first time, second time going? Okay, so I believe that is the final result. 35 people think that I can speak fluent Mandarin, 28 results saying Ku is fluent in Mandarin, and 25 answers thinking Mondo was the one who can speak fluent Mandarin. Okay, that's interesting result. I know everyone can put in 2 answer. So let me tell you the answer. Just give me a second. I'm going back to my screen, and then thank you for that 35 answers who thinks that I can speak Mandarin fluently. Thank you for your faith. But unfortunately, 3 people in that option, I'm the one who can't speak fluent Mandarin. That is the reason why I want to put this question in as the ice-breaking game, because I have my Chinese roots. By default, people think that I can speak Mandarin fluently. That is not the case. But before I tell you my story, let's introduce my special guest today. Ku was born in France, but he is currently having a Mandarin speaking and also French and English speaking YouTube channel. Apart from speaking fluent Mandarin, he can also speak fluent Korean as well, because he stayed in Korea for some time, and then he decided to move to other place. His YouTube channel is very interesting. It's a bit of like the East-West combination, and it has English subtitles. So I highly suggest you to have a watch of his video after the session. Especially, Ku asked his grandma, which is the French, trying a grandma and her friends trying hot pot for the first time in their life, because before that they have no idea what hot pot is, and then it is hilarious to see the reaction and things like that. So Mondo was born in Japan. He was the national champion for Taekwondo. He can speak fluent Mandarin. He is actually a variety show host, can speak fluent Mandarin, unlike me. And then he has a YouTube channel as well. Unfortunately, that YouTube channel doesn't have English subtitle, but he is very keen in bodybuilding. Anyone interested in bodybuilding, maybe visit his channel. I believe you can understand what he say even without the subtitle. Okay, now back to me. Thank you for those people who have faith in me. I can't speak fluent Mandarin. That is true. My first language is actually Cantonese. That is my mother tongue. I have no problem reading Chinese as in like simple Chinese, traditional Chinese. I have no problem reading and listening to it and writing, but I can't speak fluent Mandarin. That is the trick of this question, because I don't know, for some reason, people think that like, because I have the Chinese root, the appearance, of course, people think that like I can speak fluent Mandarin, and for some reason, somehow, some people will think that like they want to practice their Mandarin with me because like they are Anglo, but for some reason they know Mandarin, and then they think that it is like a very friendly things to speak to me in my own language, but I can't speak Cantonese. That's the problem. I can speak Cantonese, but I can't speak fluent Mandarin. That's the problem. So sometimes I was like, I can have like I can have a basic conversation like, how are you today? What have you eaten? Sorry, that is the Asian parents speaking thing. But if you ask me to conduct a session like this in Mandarin, no, definitely not. I cannot do it. I will be like, what is that word? So that is the reason I want to put this question as the ice-breaking game, because I want to break the stereotype. It's like having someone that looks like Chinese doesn't mean they can speak fluent Mandarin. So that is something that you need to remember. Okay. After we have the game, let's talk about stereotype. So stereotype is a set of ideas that people have about what someone or something is like, especially an idea that is wrong. Before doing this session, I was thinking stereotypes only apply to the people, which is just like, not just culturally, it can be gender, age, or whatever, but it's limited to the people. However, when I bring back my put on my international student thinking cap again, then I realized something very interesting. Apart from to die is a good die. If you have no idea what I'm speaking about, please refer to the ALIA Multicultural blog. I have an entry about this sentence. Apart from this sentence, there is a very funny things about Australia as well before I even come to Australia, which is our beloved Vegemite. From the international student world, Vegemite is a very scary thing. Well, personally speaking, I like it now. But before I come to Australia, I heard a lot of weird things about Vegemite. It's like how disgusting it is, why people like this kind of thing. But like I have that kind of thinking as well. That is a stereotype until the time that I actually tried Vegemite properly. Then I realized Vegemite is not that disgusting. It's not how people think. If you go to the YouTube now, and then you will find a lot of Vegemite prank, and that's how people get that wrong idea from. For those who is not originally born in Australia, and then what do you think about Vegemite before you trying it? If you have like a similar experience, heard all those weird things about Vegemite, and like think that it is a weird thing that people eat before you actually tried it, please put it in the chat, because that is quite common for the international student. Maybe it's not for those who actually born in here. Okay, so stereotype is not just about people. It can be about things as well. So Vegemite is one of the things that have issues. So there's something for you to think about it. Next, so where does the stereotype come from? So stereotype is something that is in everywhere. We can't avoid it. There is no chance for us to like eliminate all the stereotypes in this world, because it is everywhere. So it can be based on the folklore, media portrait, and other unreliable source of information. So that is why digital literacy, media literacy is so important. Cannot believe that I will mention it in a stereotype session, right? Depends on where you get the information. It will make you to think a certain way. For example, the little Joey who, before I come to Australia, when I was in Hong Kong, I watched all those Hong Kong drama. And in those drama, everyone that do not look like Asian speak perfect English. So at that moment, the little Joey was thinking, so everyone that doesn't look like Asian can speak fluent English. Yes, that was my thinking back at that time because of the drama. And then, of course, by the time I grow up, realized that's not the case. But on the other hand, like nowadays, well, I'm not sure how many of the kids nowadays actually watch TV, so we change it to the YouTube. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of YouTube Vegemite prank online. So if people keep watching that thing, they may have like stereotype about Vegemite and may think that it is a weird thing, so on and so forth. So that's why stereotypes is in everywhere. And then we need to be aware of what kind of stereotype actually in our mind. That is very hard, I know it. The next thing is about positive stereotype. Yes, it is a thing. Even though there is a stereotype about stereotype, is that stereotypes are always negative. Yes, I try to do a tongue twister. But in reality, there is something called positive stereotype. It is like to describe the admirable, desirable, beneficial qualities and characteristics of the member of a particular group of social category. The easiest example, there is a positive stereotype about Asian, which is Asian are good at math. Whenever I listen to that one, I want to laugh so hard because I'm one of the weird dudes that are bad at math. I was so tempted to put my failed report card of the math failed report card up here to prove that. But we all know once it is online, it will be forever. So I'm not going to do that because I don't want that to haunt me in 20 years time. But trust me, I failed maths, surprisingly. So that is a positive stereotype. So stereotype may not be negative as such. It can be positive, like also this group of people are very good at math. This group of people are very polite, and so on and so forth. Then you may think that, is that a good thing? It depends, because it depends on the people. Some people, there is a research saying, some people may think that it is a good thing because it can like override the negative stereotype from the other perspective and make me look good. On the other hand, some people may think that it is negative because, oh, I'm Asian, I failed at math. Does that mean I'm not Asian enough? Or, oh, I bring shame to the whole ethnic group because I failed in math. It will give pressure to the person as well. So this kind of stereotype, even though having the name of positive stereotype, it doesn't mean it is always positive. It doesn't mean it always brings positive effect to other people. It may make other people feel negative as well. So it depends on the people and how they react to it. For me, I'll just always laugh at it. It's like, oh man, what do you think about Asian are good at math? I'm the one who is the example that failed at math. So everyone is different. So you need to be aware of this issue. Okay. After that, I'll pass on to Hiba to talk about unconscious bias. Hiba, off you go.
Thank you. So thank you for that, Joey. And I've just been reading some of the chat as well about Vegemite. And yeah, there's some stories about Vegemite I'm sure we could all share. So with unconscious bias, yes, as the definition there says, an unfair belief about a group of people that we're not aware of and that can affect our decision and behaviors. And so we all have biases, we have preferences, and we outright just enjoy different flavors and colors and foods and everything. And navigating our day-to-day world, biases come into our actions, and it's all different types of actions. So unconscious or hidden biases often refers to attitudes and patterns of perceptions that are held subconsciously and can be very ingrained, and we all have them. This is the thing. So not dissimilar to stereotypes, as Joey was talking about, these automatic associations can lead to assumptions that are not always accurate and can have detrimental impacts to day-to-day decision-making and our lives and at work. So unconscious bias could be about someone's ethnicity. It could be about gender, age, accent, sexual orientation, parental status, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So these are just to name a few. It unwittingly permeates workplaces, affecting decision-making processes, including recruitment, promotion, development, and access to other opportunities. What we tend to see with unconscious bias is that it shows up by when we continually cultivate a particular culture, what I like to call it, like a stronger culture. And this can be through media or popular culture, or even through some of the stories that we hear and we share. And subsequently through the emission of other cultures. And I'm using cultures as a very broad term, obviously. And this perpetuates biases. And we can reflect, I guess, in our own lives and the world, more broadly speaking, how this might happen, or in some of the ways that this has occurred. So what are some of the things that we could do? So I guess we could really think about our biases before the recruitment. What's the impact? I guess challenging our own, sort of recognizing our own biases and understanding, I suppose, brain function and learning more about that. And there are a bunch of links on YouTube, which we'll share later in the chat, and we can send around to everyone, that Joey and I thought would be really, really interesting and touch on this point. I think that we could really display our language collections prominently, for example, all throughout the year, not just on very specific days like Harmony Day, for example, and really try and incorporate different elements in our programming, in our collections. And then again, just to incorporate language and culture and broader inclusivity. And I would probably say also maybe confronting our own internal biases, so that we can be a bit more conscious about our unconscious bias. And if you can think of others, please drop them in the chat, because this is really about having a conversation and sharing. So we'd really love to hear that. Some other suggestions perhaps is maybe taking a day in the life of, and thinking about, for example, I'm just going to give the example of someone wearing the headscarf, how they might navigate their life on, going to a restaurant, navigating public transport, or even coming into your library. And there are so many other ones that you could choose to do there. And I suppose one thing we could do is maybe challenge inappropriate comments about marginalized groups when we are having those conversations. So those are the two things which, when I was preparing this speech, I thought they'd be really good to share, but of course there are others. So please do drop them in. That's it from me, Joey.
Thank you, Hiba. Now, if you refresh the Mentimeter page just now when we had our icebreaking game, then there is another question, is like, what is your most eye-rolling stereotype experience? So if you feel like, you can put in your entry now. But for all of us who is not going to put in the story, let's do some warm up with our eyes, because we are going to roll our eyes a lot because of all those weird questions got asked in our life. So let's roll our eyes to the left, to the right, do an anti-clockwise roll, and then clockwise. Make sure that your eyes are all exercise warm up, and then now we can start rolling eyes and listen to our story. Okay, before we go into the Mentimeter one, keep putting your story in. We'll mention it later. Let me share my most hilarious eye-rolling experience with you. A bit of context. I'm very tall. My height is 178 centimeters. I'm tall as in all sort of way. It's not just Asian. I'm tall in women as a whole. So a lot of people think that I'm a weird dude and keep asking me, so what makes you that tall? I'm sick of answering that question. So my default answer is, I eat self-raising flour. Don't ask me anymore. Yes, that is the magic, believe it or not. But the most eye-rolling experience I ever had was, I was in a concert with my friend. They are the average height. So I'm the stood out one because I'm so tall. I was standing behind the crowd control barrier. So I was like enjoying waiting. Okay, so I heard someone is shouting behind me, and it's like, get down. And I was like, what? Get down what? I didn't do anything at that time because to me, I'm just waiting for my artist to come out and then enjoy the show. And I keep hearing, get down, get down. Girl with the black jacket, get down. And I was like, huh? That was me. Apparently, that security think that I was climbing up onto the crowd control barrier because I am that tall. And to that person think that I must be on something. If not, I can't be that tall. So I have to show him, it's like, man, I'm standing on the ground. I'm not in anywhere. And then that is the most eye-rolling experience I ever had. And then that is the joke for my life. My friend keep teasing me sometimes when they saw me in the crowd, and then they were just like, oh, get down, Joey. And I was like, bleh. So that is one of my very eye-rolling experience. Now I pass it on to Hiba. What is your story?
Well, mine is a work one. So I guess as someone who is, you know, in a library space and as a team leader, I often get asked to see a manager or someone who is in a higher position. And when I tell them that I'm the branch librarian, yes, I often get question marks or yeah, things like that. So that's, I guess, one eye-rolling experience that I've had.
Okay, so now we'll go through the Mentimeter story. Anyone in the audience that would like to share your story with the microphone, or you just prefer me to read out the story that you share from the Mentimeter?
I'll share my story, Joey, if that's fine.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Letha Lynch. I'm the Policy and Research Librarian at ALIA. Some of you may have read a blog item that I wrote for ALIA Multicultural last year about linguistic prejudice, and I think that topic is very pertinent to this presentation. I had a situation last year where someone pulled me aside and told me to stop saying the words library and librarian. And this person went on to say, people cringe when you speak and people wonder if you had an education, and that she was only there to help me, and that if I continue to speak the way I do, I will not get far in this industry. So linguistic prejudice, what is it? It is when you make assumptions, in this case, negative assumptions about someone based on the way they sound. So the way that we sound is very much based on our culture and background. This person made assumptions that I may not be possibly had a good education because of the way I sound. And that, and Hiba was also mentioning before about issues with recruitment. This could cause unconscious bias in the way people may perceive you because of the way you sound in a job interview. And also potentially there's, and Joey mentioned, positive stereotypes. So some people may make an assumption that if someone sounds, they came from a posh background, that they may be quite well suited for the job and highly educated, and they get the job. So that's my story, and there's so much more to talk about, but this is not my presentation, and I hand it back to the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so thank you, Jackie, for sharing the screen. Let's have a look. Well, I got a few from the answer from the Slido that you guys put in before the session. Majority of them is actually asking if I was born in Australia, even though you replied, I'm born in Australia, but the people keep asking, where are you from? Yeah, I understand that it's annoying. And then yeah, where are you from multiple times? And then, oh, I will not hire a man in this public library. That is very mean. And then people assume that I'm a Muslim just because of my name. Oh, that is not good as well. A name is a name. It doesn't matter. And then I saw quite a lot of people in here saying that, where are you really from? That is, well, in Australia, we always got asked because of that. So I have a migrant background, so I can still say that because I literally moved to Australia when I grew up. But I have the other way around experience when I was in overseas. So when I was in South Korea, I was visiting somewhere near the president place. So they have the security check and things like that. And of course, the security will ask me, oh, so where are you from? Australia. And then they like, what? It took a few seconds to realize that, yes, I am not Caucasian, but I'm from Australia. So it is something that happens worldwide. It's not just in Australia. And then, okay, there's like, oh, I have encountered some library staff where discussing undesirable food to be eaten in the academic library or to be left in the student locker, always citing example of Asian food. That is a bit sad. I bet there is a mention of durian because the smelly thing, but like the food that you are not used to doesn't mean it is really weird. It's just, it is not not the food that you usually eat. It doesn't mean it's always weird and things like that. And yes, you work in a library, you must like book, and library is a relaxed place to work. And then I have another one in the slide that will say, do you have to go to uni to be a librarian? Yeah, I got asked that a lot as well. Especially if you have an Asian parent or relative, whenever you tell them that I work in the library as a librarian, that is a kind of answer you receive. And then I roll my eyes so hard because up to this point, my relatives still think that I do nothing at work and just read books. Very hard to explain to them, but I have given up. Oh, because I look younger than my age, I must be a teenage mom. Oh, that is a very bad stereotype. And my surname doesn't match my appearance. Is that certain? Well, that's a very weird stereotype because I never think that a certain surname has certain face. That's weird. Thank you for all of your contributions. Thank you for sharing your story. There's too many on the Mentimeter that I can't go through right now, but very, very, very thank you for sharing your story with us. They are very enlightening. And then eye rolling as well. I believe you have rolled your eyes, don't know how many times by now for all those weird comments we receive in our life. Okay, so let's move on. I'll share my screen again. Just a second. So thank you for sharing the story with us. And in the chat as well, thank you very much. Okay, then we need to talk about how to break stereotype. As I said before, it is in everywhere. We can't actually eliminate them. So we may need to do something to try to make ourselves aware and then break it. I read a book recently. It is I Want to Die, but I Want to Eat Tteokbokki. It is not really entirely about stereotype, but I reckon it is something, this sentence from the psychiatrist in the book is quite reasonable and related to our topic as well, is if we have a habit of judging people from a simplistic perspective, that perspective will eventually turn against ourselves. For those who actually think that I'm a man, so if you see me have a smirk on my face, and then you will know you will be in my next stand-up comedy material. That is my saying only. But we need to realize that if we judge people just black and white, that in a very simplistic stereotype form, it will come back and hurt us. So the next question for your contribution, please refresh the Mentimeter page, then you'll be asked how to break stereotype. Do you have any suggestion to break stereotype? And then for me, I would say, get to know your colleague. Try to talk to your colleague and then listen to their story, or not just colleague, but it's also your community. Talk to your community and your colleagues to really understand their background, to understand their culture, and then realize that every people is unique. I have weird sense of humor, doesn't mean everyone in Asia has weird sense of humor. Every people is different, and every individual is different regardless of the cultural background. That is something that you need to remember. I have a very interesting story with my former colleague. Is like, first of all, when he said that sentence, we have been working for a few time at that, a bit long time at that time already. So he's kind of getting used to me, and we are friends and sort of. And then he tried very careful when he said the following things. I need to remind you guys that it's like he is not offensive, or he is not trying to be racist, because he keep asking me. It's like, don't take it wrong way, because he want to make sure that I don't feel offended. Which is what is the line he's saying? It's actually he think that I'm not like the usual typical Asian. That is the friendly word. And then I just basically replied to him, it's like, yeah, you think I'm not the abnormal, you think I'm the abnormal Chinese, isn't it? And then he was like, yes. Because what I do is all the things that is break all the stereotype of being a Chinese. So that is why to him, I'm weird in a way, but it's just not the usual Chinese he met in his life. So if you talk to your colleague more than you colleague your community, then you will understand that there's a lot of story behind and things like that. And then let's look at the Mentimeter answer. Pause before you speak the first and take time to learn about the culture in your community. Exactly. Listen, educate, understand, and respect, open mind. Ask when you are not sure, don't assume. Yes, it linked back to our session title, which is stereotypes when assumptions are the mothers of all beep ups. So don't assume anything. So remember to listen and respect. Take the time to get to know the college. Yes, I said that already. Educate people around you gently but firmly. Everyday conversation help. Question your assumption. Continue to be yourself. That's true. Because like the story of me is like I am not your typical Chinese that you can see. I speak bad jokes and do weird things that totally not related. And this is Joey, and this is the crazy Joey that I'm happy with. Yeah, recognize your own bias is hard, but like if you educate yourself, then you will understand that one. Put yourself and other outside your comfort zone. Maybe require some very hard conversation, but sometimes it's worth the effort. Exposure, create awareness. Yes, that's create awareness. That is why we have the multicultural group in ALIA. We try to promote the multicultural and in the community as well as in the workplace, because we want to make sure that everyone realize the diversity and inclusiveness is very important in our work life as well as the personal life. Okay. So is there any encourage others to interact and learn from each other? That's very important. Everyone has their specialties and strengths, and we should learn from each other. It's not just because we want to break the cultural stereotype or other things. Even at work, it helps because what I know may not be what you know. What I don't know may be something you are very good at. So we should learn from each other and don't be like feeling you are privileged because of your background and so on and so forth. Is there any things to include? No, share our bias stories. Yeah, I love that as well. That's why I always laugh at the story. Don't allow stereotypes to go unchecked. Speak up when you see something. A friendly reminder that how should I say? That is some bystander things, because when I was new, I was scared. I was really scared because I am new. Back in that time, I was the only weird Asian in the industry because I can hardly see the other Asian or Chinese looking person in the professional development, because I was in the very early stage of my career. I was really scared to speak up. That is a truth. It took me so long to realize I can actually stand up for my own right. That's my personal story, but I believe whoever in the minority group will understand this thing, because we are the minority. Sometimes it's very hard for us to actually speak up. Especially parents usually taught us it's like, oh, don't say anything, just stuck it up. We are the minority. You should just flow with the flow and listen to the majority. Somehow that is the parents' teaching, at least in my household, but I believe there is a very common case in the other people as well. So what you can do is, as a colleague, of course, you need to encourage your minority colleague or in your community to try to speak up, but it takes time to build up their confidence. So as a bystander, maybe you can try to do something like fight for the injustice for the colleague as well, to actually let them know that they are not alone. Because when you're at that stage of their life, it's very hard, because I'm the only Asian in here, and they may not know who is going to be the supportive colleague that will support them when there is injustice. That is something we need to consider, because that is the things I went through in my life, so that I can speak about that one. It's really, I know everyone says speaking up, but to be honest, if you are the minority one in there, it is very hard to speak up. It takes a lot of courage. Especially, I need to think about whether or not I will lose my job. That's true, it will happen, because I need to pay my mortgage, I need to live, I don't have parents in here to live with, I need my job, I need the money. If I face anything that is injustice back at that time, definitely I won't say a word, because I cannot guarantee whether or not it will come back and bite me and hurt my career. What if, like, because I do this and then I won't have my job? Who knows what happened? So that is something we need to consider, like try to help your colleagues as well. Be friendly, talk to them, encourage them, and give them confidence to actually speak up and fight for their right. Okay, so now move back. Oh, thank you all the story and then the entries just now. So back to some research I've done. So Samson and Wood et al. Did suggest that in order to break stereotype, you need to have high level of self-awareness, value the differences between the cultures, put yourself in other people's shoes, seek information from different sources. If you keep reading the information from one certain channel, then you will be molded into that channel's bias. So in order to change, you should read from other places as well, see from different angles, even though you may not agree that different angles, but it's good to read this source read from that source as well, because you will know how the other people think and how those group of people, even though you don't agree with, actually think and what makes them think. You can understand more. Okay, so now the question time. It is not a library will function without a cat or other animals. So here it is, this is the cat. So do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I mean, I guess my question is based around like, so most of the information that you touch base on is advising or suggesting how, like, so basically from the receiving end of stereotyping, how do you overcome it? How do you deal with it? Can you touch base on a little bit more about that? I guess it's an expectation to ask people to be self-aware, to understanding the culture. That's in itself is an expectation. But what can we do in order to deal with stereotype throwing at us?
Well, first of all, I would say find your ally. It's very important, because being the minority, I know that it's very hard to do everything by yourself. It's like, no matter how much confidence you have, if you have no one back you up, it is very hard, I know. So finding ally is important. Try to see if it is a workplace area, try to find whether or not there is a colleague that you can like have a discussion, or they will support you. My thing is, as I said before, a lot of people think that I'm a man. I keep mentioning it, and then I make all my colleagues aware of it. And then at one stage, I wasn't in that scene, but I was in somewhere other places. But my colleague was in an event, and then the event person was speaking, because I was doing something with them, and then the host was saying that, oh, you know, Joey is blah 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 blah, he blah 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 blah, and then my colleague at that time, all of them was like, Joey is a girl, Joey is a woman, Joey is not a man. Kind of scared the person, because the person was like, the Joey I know is the man. And then my colleague just sort of fight for me. It's like, no, this Joey is a woman. And it's like, should I say? That is like, I would say, to make us feel more comfortable, try to find ally to support us that will fight for us. And then, if personally speaking, I would say, try to build your confidence. I know it's very hard. It is really hard. It took me like almost 10 years to have the courage to actually stand up and speak for myself.
I'm on the same boat. So I can deal with it now. And I've been at the library for the last 13 years. And I can say confidently that I can stand up with stereotyping and dealing it with a appropriate manner. I guess that's one of the things that I find challenging the most, is deal with it. Like when you get stereotype throwing at you, you can't help feel quite emotional about it, but putting that emotion aside and then deal with it in a professional and polite manner is quite challenging. But I can say that I have mastered it now after 13 years.
It is really hard. It's really hard. That is the reason why I want to do this session today, is because I know everyone is struggle with certain stereotype in their life. It is like everywhere. It's not just because I'm a minority and then I struggle this. It's everyone struggle this type of things. And it did times to build up the confidence. And of course, on the spot, it's very hard because like someone saw me before and straight to the face will tell me that I thought you are a man. And I was like, you watch too much Friends. I like those, like, it's just me because I like to make bad jokes, as I said before. So I will always like make it as a joke way to make both parties feel not too bad at the situation. Because I know some people not really purposely trying to hurt you. It's just because their stereotype in their mind and then makes them say something weird. Like people who expect me to speak fluent Mandarin. There's a lot of things that is even worse, but I try to make it lighter. I would just like speak spoken Mandarin with them and it's like, why you think that I can speak Mandarin? Or I would the other way around, it's like, oh, you're good at Mandarin. Why don't you teach me how to speak Mandarin? Because I can't speak Mandarin. That kind of things. It needs practice. Sorry to say that, it's really need practice. And then, but I always think that like throw in some light joke will help the situation. Because I realize if like both parties laugh at that time, will make the tension less stressful. I saw someone ask me a question. Okay, sorry. I saw someone mention my name. Just give me a second.
Joey, can I just add something just on this? It was just in response to the previous question. I totally understand the concept around the emotion behind how you feel when you're in a space when something like this happens. And it is a lot to actually expect any staff member to work through that emotional space and respond at the same time. And sometimes I think from a culturally safe perspective, I think everyone has a right to be able to say, I need to walk away from this right now and be given the time to develop the strategy to deal with it in a way that might feel stronger, because it's really difficult to find that strength when you feel that emotional moment.
I agree with that. It's really, really hard. And then that is why the first thing I say is find your ally. It's really very important because sometimes when something really bad happened to me at work because of my cultural background, I have to walk away. And then my colleagues realize what happened. They can sense it. And then they would just step in and help me out. And then I'll just walk away and then go into the room and rant about it or just cry. Either one, depends on the situation. Just because, so that is why it's like you have to find your ally to let the colleague know that it's like, that is something, it hurt our feeling very much. And then sometimes we just need to have the quiet time. I can't find that message anymore. Just now when I was answering question, I saw someone specially address me saying, Joey, can you please?
I removed it because I couldn't word it better.
Oh, okay. So it's not me having weird eyesight because I saw my name and I couldn't find it now. So do you guys have any other questions? It's the awkward silent time.
Belle, did you want to ask your question, Belle? It was about what do you do when someone wants to embrace the stereotype?
Yeah, like she doesn't, when you try to convince or discuss about something, you would give them an example, like how would you feel? How would you respond? But in all those instances I give, she thinks, oh, that's great if you want to know about my family, my background. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
So did you mean that you had a stereotype person talking to you and then when you try to ask the question back, they just blah, 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 blah?
That's one example, yeah. But also, for example, I'm trying to educate my mom to be more sensitive. But she says, but I love it when he speaks Chinese to me, or expects women to do those things. That's a good value, for example.
Yeah, I can understand.
So it's actually a very good, it's actually a very good example. I've definitely faced this. And I think that this is where I think having really authentic conversations comes into play, and where we can really challenge, I think, people's ideas and beliefs and systems, obviously in a very kind and considerate way. And I think that there are a lot of examples out there too. Like we live in a society now where we have a lot of examples where we can challenge. So I think asking those questions and having those communication lines open helps, instead of because I think people tend to shut down when we have these conversations, and then they get a bit stuck on their line of thinking. So if we just and I will tell you that this is it doesn't take one conversation, it will take multiple conversations. And yeah, so I mean that's just one example.
No, I think you're right. Even having had that talk was a step. Thank you.
Just chip in a bit. For the relative, especially us, the relative, when we talk it to our mom or our parent or things like that, it's even harder because
that power.
Yeah, relative thinks that because you are younger than them and you know nothing, that's very, very hard. So sometimes one of the things that is like I try to make my parents realize is like change the situation and try to let them feel it and experience by themselves. And then at that stage, they will finally realize there's something wrong in between. But it's a very long fight and long battle when we try to educate our older relatives, because it takes time for them to change.
I agree.
Yeah, keep trying. I know it's hard. It's like I'm still hard. 20 years to try to make my mom understand that I don't just read books at work. I'm getting there almost, but still very hard to explain to it.
And I think in general,
Annette has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I think Turkan had her hand up before me, so I'll let her go first.
Can you hear me okay?
Excellent. Yep, all good.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I guess I'm really mindful, first of all, to acknowledge all of you in this room. Some of you carry ancestral stories, your languages, your custodial knowledge. I want to pay my respects, and I'm connecting to you from Dara country in this lead up to the referendum as well. My allyship as someone who's a migrant to this community means so much more right now. Notions of stereotyping has such grand impacts in every day of our lives. Some of us more, some of us less. Maria, I'd love to go back to what you were sharing a bit earlier about, why do we have to confront it? Why do we have to correct anybody? The fact that we should be able to walk away from it is about safeguarding ourselves and not being a part of the stereotype behaviours that really perpetuate sometimes really intense racism in some parts. I think it's important for us to always reflect, assess our internalized anti-racism processes as well. How are we internalizing racism? Are we perpetuating narratives that aren't factual? And something that I'd like to do, and I have found quite powerful, is to drop language to let them know you're in my space as well. I'm not just in yours. So I'll say merhaba, hoş bulduk, teşekkür ederim, which means morning, thank you for having me here. I'll make sure that they can understand the English language as well. But I try to safeguard that space at all times, because I find that I don't want to even be exposed to your BS. I don't want to be put in those spaces where it can actually harm me, not just psychologically, it can harm me physically. When you have exposure of this as a child, I'm in my 50s now, I was exposed to this at 7. Like, that's a lot of time to be exposed to correcting, helping out, walking away. That's a lot of time. This stuff impacts our heart, impacts our mental health, impacts our physical well-being. So I think we have a massive role to demystify this stuff that's happening around us, and to make sure we utilize language in a very powerful way. And I find the most powerful way is to drop my identity. you better give me respect, because if you don't, you're going to get the wrath of what that means. Because we are in a multicultural country. We have the honor and privilege to be on First Nations countries. That is such a privilege and an honor. So I think it's really, really important that we share this. Thank you, Joey, so much about what stereotypes do and this language that gets utilized. And like I think someone else already shared, this is a lifelong journey. It's not a one-time training or having this one-off conversation. It's many conversations, many connections, and it's such an honor and a privilege to speak to you all about it today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Annette, I think you wanted to have you had a question?
Oh, no, I'm conscious of time, so I'm happy to leave mine for later on. It's all good.
Okay. Thank you so much to everyone for joining, for sharing, for listening, for opening up your minds and your hearts. And hopefully this is the first, as we said, of many more webinar series to come. And if you do have ideas about what you would like to see us address in the next ones to come, please do get in contact through our ALIA socials or ALIA Multicultural. If you go to the website, you'll see all the details there. I was reading through the chats as well, so thank you everyone who commented in the chat. Just some amazing ideas and people dropping links as well. So again, thank you. And I'm conscious of time and I think we have to end it there. Thank you so much, Joey, as well, for sharing your experiences and for talking to us today. Thank you,
everyone. Mel has sent some links in the chat, which is like good takeaway link that you can watch after the session. It is hilarious, but it's also related to the information I've shared today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.